When America needs defending, you call in the Eagles. For going on 50 years, the McDonnell Douglas, today Boeing, F-15 Eagle, has been America's frontline workhorse among its fighter jet arsenal, and the results have spoken for themselves. Between a 104-0 win-loss rate in direct aerial combat, spots of honor in the air forces of some of America's most important allies, and its exceptional reliability and longevity as a platform, the F-15 and its descendant aircraft have distinguished themselves at every turn. Now, even in a US Air Force that has not one but two cutting-edge fighter aircraft at its disposal, both with globally unmatched capabilities, the F-15 still manages to keep pace. Yet, for all its combat glory, for all its critical acclaim, the F-15 still manages to keep one special secret, that despite still sharing its shape and size with the plane that existed 50 years ago, the F-15 of today is an entirely different beast than its outwardly identical, but far more antiquated carbon copy. And right now, as we speak, a new iteration of the F-15 is rolling off the production line for the very first time, poised to become one of the very best weapons of America's wartime arsenal. This is the story of the Boeing F-15EX Eagle II, the successor aircraft meant to take the reins from the F-15 Eagle and push America's Air Force to newer and greater heights. Just before we continue with today's video, I want to tell you about something that's been a game changer for so many guys out there, but not for me, because I am super bald, and that is Keeps. Now look, as I just said, I'm already bald, but some of you might be just going bald. You might be thinking you are going to go bald because your whole family is bald. This was me in my early 20s. And you might be thinking I'd like to have my hair a little bit longer, and that's where Keeps comes in. Look, if it was 10 years ago, oh god, 15 years ago now. I've been bald a long time. I'd be all over Keeps. It's an online subscription service that makes it super easy and affordable for men to tackle male pattern baldness from the comfort of their home. No more awkward doctor's visits or trips to the pharmacy. Just complete an online consultation and a licensed medical provider will tailor a treatment plan specifically for you. And the best part, they deliver the treatment right to your door in discreet packaging so you can it's just subtle, isn't it? It's nice of them to go to the doctor and the pharmacy and be like, no, just definitely losing my hair. Nothing. You can choose delivery options of 3, 6, or 12 months, and you can adjust, pause, or cancel your plan anytime. Keeps offer clinically proven treatments that will stimulate hair growth, plus hair thickening shampoo, conditioner, and styling pomade. Make your hair look its best. God, it's been a long time since I've used any of that stuff. And here's a fun fact, over the last 6 years, Keeps have treated over 1 million men. That's a lot of happy guys with great hair. Oh, rub it in, why don't you, Keeps, with your ad copy? Thank you to Keeps for sponsoring this video. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/Simon or click the link in the description below. That's keeps.com/Simon. And now back to today's video. The original F-15 Eagle traces its lineage back to the beginnings of its development program in the mid-1960s, when an American adversary learned the hard way that when potential future battlefield enemies brag about platforms that aren't really all that behind the scenes, the United States tends to respond not by trying to get a look at the thing, but by engineering a bigger, badder platform as their answer. In this case, it was the MiG-25 Foxbat interceptor aircraft out of Russia, boasting extreme high speeds at high altitude and convincing America that it was about to be outclassed. The answer was the first generation F-15. And while the Foxbat turned out to be a bit of a dud, the F-15, it didn't. Boasting maximum speeds at 2.5 times the speed of sound, flying at over twice the altitude of a modern-day commercial airliner, and capable of carrying enough ordnance to make a contemporary Soviet pilot just eject and save himself the dogfight, the Eagle was a crowning achievement for the United States in the half-century-long Cold War. Fast forward another half century though, and the problems that led to the Eagle II weren't quite so glamorous. By that time, in the mid-2010s, the United States already had an aerial asset that no global adversary could challenge in the F-22. It was just beginning to introduce a new aircraft into service, the F-35, an aircraft where the Pentagon was still intended to go all in despite myriad problems, delays, and cost overruns. Enemy aircrafts were not the problem. Instead, the problem was the Air Force's long war against the Red Pen, wielded by America's own budget officers looking to tighten the country's belt after the Cold War concluded. America wasn't planning on any intercontinental world wars anytime soon, and as a result of cuts against programs like the F-22, the Air Force was projected to run low on air superiority fighters for a span of years and potentially even decades. Those programs were too expensive to restart once the US realized its misstep, and with the F-35 sucking funds out of any room where a Department of Defense official dared whisper its name, there weren't many other options. The Air Force could extend the life of some of its older F-15s for air superiority, upgrading their avionics and pushing their retirement date back, but that was nothing more than a stopgap measure, and one that American military leaders knew wouldn't be sustainable either. But over at Boeing, the longtime owner of the F-15 after it acquired McDonnell Douglas back in the day, the F-15 was already showing potential far beyond what America had achieved. The planes in question weren't going to the United States at all. Instead, they were going to Saudi Arabia and Qatar in the form of two advanced models that built on the abilities of the initial F-15 design and rounded them out in a pretty major way. They were evolutions on the F-15E Strike Eagle, itself an immensely popular variant of the base F-15, and the new improvements were already impressive enough to set them apart. Boeing had the designs, the world had better F-15s, America just hadn't bothered to procure them yet. Not only that, but shifts in thinking around American air superiority strategy led military planners to the conclusion that a new F-15 could have value and longevity all its own. Fifth-generation fighters are, generally speaking, really impressive pieces of hardware, and it's hard to invent a battle that they aren't able to win. But they're not always necessary either. Using a more advanced version of the fourth-generation fighters currently in America's arsenal, strategists envisioned a hybridized approach to air superiority where a workhorse aircraft could fill all the roles that don't require bells and whistles like stealth technology or address threats that say the F-35 is too slow to handle in an interceptor role or doesn't carry enough payload to manage. Far from a reduction in capability, a truly advanced F-15 or similar fighter would ensure that America could select the right tools for a given job, while at the same time offloading some of the nation's air superiority responsibilities onto a more affordable but still advanced alternative. If such a program could run in a way that didn't get in the F-35 program's way and didn't open the Pentagon or the Air Force to any more risk than they already faced, then it could be potentially a major boon to the future of the USAF. In 2018, after strategic analysis basically greenlit the idea of a combined fourth and fifth generation fighter fleet, the US Air Force began working closely with Boeing to discuss the so-called Advanced F-15 or F-15EX. It would be a two-seat model, they eventually worked out, given that Boeing was, by that time, producing exclusively two-seater aircraft on its current production lines. The program was set to be based in St. Louis, Missouri, where Boeing had a major plant that the US wanted to keep open in order to help spread around America's fighter aircraft construction capabilities. The Air Force picked out the new hardware and software systems it wanted to update the plane with, made improvements on the plane that Qatar and Saudi Arabia had been getting, and before long, Boeing's already working production lines were able to fly a prototype. That maiden flight took place in February of 2021, and 2 months later, the aircraft got a name, the Eagle II. The first of the line would be delivered to the Air Force before that Eagle II name was even announced, and joined by 5 other copies, it would perform flight testing at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida for months. The rigorous testing model saw some of the aircraft participating in war games, others fitted out with new and unique equipment pieces, and still more modified to fit better with the Air Force's internal requirements. It got its approvals, its validations, its certifications, and all the other practical stuff it needed, along with a few tweaks sent back to Boeing for future aircraft. By 2024, just 6 years after the program's conception and 3 years after its maiden flight, the F-15EX was assigned to the 142nd Wing of the Oregon Air National Guard, designated for future call-up into federal service with the US Air Force. Its first flight upon delivery was flown by 2 crew call signs Knight and Wiggles and brought back down to earth amidst thunderous applause on the tarmac. The Eagle II is a marked improvement on its progenitor, either holding consistent or offering better performance in just about every conceivable metric. Measuring 63 feet, 9.5 inches from tip to tail, or just under 20 meters long, it features a wingspan of 42 feet, 9.5 inches, or 13 meters. Even sitting empty, it's a substantial piece of engineering at 34,600 pounds, or just hair under 16 metric tons. Fully loaded, that weight will more than double to a maximum takeoff weight of 81,000 pounds, or 36.75 metric tons. It's powered by 2 General Electric F-110 jet engines and seats 2 crew members, a pilot, and a weapons system officer. On paper, the Eagle II boasts a maximum speed of Mach 2.5 at high altitude, equivalent to 1,650 miles per hour or 2,655 kilometers an hour. At low altitude, it still flies well past the speed of sound at about 920 miles per hour, that's 1,500 kilometers an hour. But in practice, it can go a good bit faster, especially unloaded, and its never-exceed speed is as high as Mach 2.9. It features a combat range of 791 miles or 1,272 kilometers, while with external fuel tanks, it can fly across continents in one go, capping out at 2,400 miles or 3,900 kilometers. It features a service ceiling of 60,000 feet or 18 kilometers, and altitude it can reach barely more than a minute. In training and test situations, the Eagle II has easily won drag race-style competitions against Strike Eagles and outturned, outclimbed, and outmaneuvered models using similar airframes and engines. Pilots who've flown the Eagle II have confirmed its persistent ability to outrun the F-16 and the F-35. And then there's the question of ordnance, where the F-15EX is packing another level of heat. In addition to 12 external hardpoints, the Eagle II is capable of mounting bomb racks that increase its carrier capacity to an unbelievable 22 air-to-air missiles, 23 bombs, or a combination depending on the racks used for the job. That's nearly a threefold increase over the missile count of the F-15C and D variants. The Eagle II can carry all manner of air-to-air missiles, including the AIM-260, a missile currently under development by Lockheed Martin and treated as the Air Force and the Navy's highest priority weapon procurement. It should arrive sometime in 2024. It carries several kinds of air-to-surface and anti-radiation missiles, including the AGM-183 Arrow, a 6,600 pounds or 3 metric ton hypersonic missile currently on ice as the US decides whether or not it would like to fund the thing in future years. It carries not just small diameter bombs, but the heavy bunker-busting Mark 84, outfitted with guiding equipment called the JDAM. It integrates modern, multimodal, all-weather radar, multiple options for an advanced targeting pod that features autonomous target tracking and identification, and a specially designed electronic warfare and countermeasure suite meant to keep it available in the heat of battle. Finally, it rounds out its onboard arsenal with an onboard Gatling cannon with 500 rounds of 20mm ammunition. All across the aircraft, it includes a wide range of upgrades and modifications over previous Eagle iterations. Its electronic warfare suite and its fly-by-wire control system are significantly improved over any and all other Eagle versions, and it brings 2 extra wing pylons to the table after previous fly-by-wire systems caused it stability issues that required those pylons to go unused. The Eagle II's refined wing structure extends its service life dramatically to 20,000 flight hours, enough to nearly triple the projected service lives of most global air superiority fighters, and projecting its usefulness outward to the next 80 years, potentially not retiring until the year 2100 or later. Its onboard processor, mission computer, and its advanced large display inside the cockpit bring a level of technological integration to the pilot that most aircraft of the Eagle II's generation simply cannot match. It even carries specialized onboard sensors to help pick up on the presence of stealth aircraft, while the Eagle II may be able to integrate the Air Force's anticipated collaborative combat aircraft, an unmanned wingman drone. The Eagle II can perform both air superiority and ground attack roles, and its digital systems are designed in a way to ease the process of stacking on future upgrades and technologies. At the time of writing, the US Air Force hasn't yet brought the Eagle II into full operational status. As of now, the Air Force has taken possession of just 2 of the aircraft, with a total of 102 more on order from Boeing over the next few years. While their total fleet of 104 is relatively small, not even enough to phase out the 149 F-15C models the Air Force still flies, it's not likely that the number of ordered Eagle IIs will stay static. The program isn't cheap by any means, but it's far less costly in real dollars than the F-35, and because of how quickly Boeing can push the aircraft out on a short timetable, they're likely to be procured in small follow-up batches from year to year using the sums that are left behind after the Air Force's big budget items have been accounted for. That procurement, as of now, hasn't been fully smooth sailing. After revisions were requested, the aircraft's front fuselage has undergone some modifications that have slowed down procurement. But those bugs are expected to be mostly worked out by now, and once they are, aircraft should start arriving in larger and larger batches. In its operational role, the first 150 or so Eagle IIs are likely to fill in for, and eventually phase out, the F-15C/D. Those aircraft mostly stationed around America's own national borders under the National Guard, along with squadrons in England and Japan and a small smattering elsewhere. Those airplanes were initially supposed to be replaced by the F-16, which, to be fair, is an elite multi-role platform, but when compared to the F-15, the F-16 simply isn't as elite in that air superiority role. The Eagle II offers not reduced, but improved air superiority capabilities relative to the aircraft it'll replace and eliminates the need to service its aging predecessor. Not only that, but it'll substantially improve the Air Force's ability to operate its bomb defense air fleet in a low-cost way while making virtually no trade-offs to do so and accepting close to zero added complications or headaches in the process. Per flight hour, it's expected to cost just $25,000 to $30,000, a substantial improvement on the aircraft it'll replace and a major cost-saving measure compared to America's 5th-gen aircraft. And in terms of the ground support equipment it uses, the pilot training required and the logistical chains to support the aircraft on base and in the fields, they're close to a direct copy and paste from prior versions of the Eagle. America's production capacity for this particular plane is known to be elastic and can be ratcheted up to an output of several dozen per year, meaning that the currently projected drive to procure 104 of the planes could be finished by or before the decade's end. That's not to say, though, that everyone is a fan of the F-15EX, and in fact, the plane has drawn heavy criticism from a range of experts across the American defense world. Many condemn its lack of stealth capability, asserting that anything that cannot fly stealthily is a waste, and that all the Eagle II's advanced capabilities will come to nothing if it can't hide its presence. It's vulnerable to Russia's S-400 missile defense system and likely to Chinese-made systems as well, and when it comes to the idea of a direct confrontation with either or both nations, some experts believe that it won't be able to do the job. National security reporter Mark Episkopos, writing for The National Interest in 2021, even titled one article on the aircraft, quoting here, "Boeing F-15EX, the US Air Force's biggest mistake ever?" Yet against expert skepticism has come international confidence, with both Saudi Arabia and Israel planning to either upgrade their existing F-15s to the Eagle II standard or to order their own versions. Egypt, Poland, Indonesia, and Thailand are apparently in the hunt as well. And while we certainly admit that those experts are correct to implicate the Eagle II's lack of stealth technology, context matters, and the F-15EX won't be operating alone. Integrate its capabilities to the US air fleet as a whole, and its efficacy begins to make a whole lot more sense. In combat, the F-15EX is indeed expected to be a stark contrast to its stealthy partners. It'll thunder into aerial dogfights and across contested or enemy territory with no attempt to hide its presence. Instead, the Eagle II is known to be highly maneuverable. It's clearly very well armed, and perhaps most importantly of all, it's explosively fast, capable of enacting a higher octane, higher thrust approach to combat than any other American fighter aircraft. Its onboard computers are so sophisticated that they essentially take direction from the pilots and make previously impossible maneuvers happen with a level of precision that not even the best human operators could match without digital assistance. With those new controls, the Eagle II is either on the edge of or has passed into fully supermaneuverable status, a level of acrobatic performance that no comparable aircraft can even hope to match. Boeing's promotional materials highlight the plane's capacity to attack from very long ranges using current technology, and the ability of its electronic warfare tools to make it stealthy by default, basically blinding the enemy rather than turning itself, so to speak, invisible. For the medium term, the Eagle II is expected to continue serving in its role of airbase and homeland defense, while aircraft that see frontline operation may also take on a primarily defensive role, enforcing no-fly zones, maintaining secured airspace in contested areas, and guarding over forward deployed American assets in the field. They may be used to deploy standoff weapons, particularly ones that the US is rather eager to try out in real-life engagements, once they're ready to use and the right situation presents itself. At present, it's not expected to be the tip of the spear when conducting offensives that require overcoming modern air defenses, although the right weapons loadouts for a group of Eagle IIs operating in concert might be able to do the job. Instead, it'll be more likely to serve as a second wave, following close behind Raptor or Lightning aircraft that can conduct precision operations to hamstring an adversary's defenses before thundering in and dropping its far greater payload on targets that were, in theory, defended. And as we mentioned previously, it's unlikely that this ongoing run of 104 aircraft will be the only F-15EX batch ever produced. If the aircraft's actual capabilities match up with its purported capabilities, then it'll bring tactical and strategic value all up and down the US Air Force, overcoming a sort of tunnel vision that's taken over the stealth-minded, 5th-gen focused Pentagon in favor of sleek, sophisticated utilitarianism. As time goes on and technology develops, it's unclear just what the Eagle II will be able to accomplish when paired up with more advanced aircraft. Some commentators have suggested that it may function as a weapons truck to support the F-35 or the F-22, joining them in contested airspace and pairing with their sophisticated battlefield mapping systems. With an F-35 or an F-22 flying ahead and marking targets, it's the Eagle II that may follow behind with the heavy firepower, making attack runs look easy against aerial adversaries or ground targets that thought they were well defended. As we mentioned previously, they may be able to work alongside loyal wingman drones, some of which may increase the Eagle II's weapons carrying capacity even further, while others may be able to act as stealth scouts and fulfill the covert responsibilities that the Eagle II can't do directly. As American ultra-long-range weaponry continues to develop, the Eagle II will be the most capable and nimble plane to be able to carry particularly heavy munitions, and at least in theory, they should be more than able to carry the large and heavy component parts that are expected to carry the first air superiority directed energy weapons, essentially lasers. The story of the F-15EX is not yet written. And until it has the opportunity to get a taste of real-world combat in all its iterations, it'll be impossible to truly pinpoint whether this plane is a major success, a major dud, or something in between. But at least on paper, the Eagle II is poised to offer a major improvement on every aircraft in the US Air Force in one way or another. It can do more and do it better, with better onboard systems than its fellow 4th-generation fighters, and it can operate faster, longer, with better and heavier weaponry, and in closer quarters engagements than the 5th-generation aircraft that technically outmatch it. And most important of all, it won't fly alone. Instead, it'll join the US Air Force as the tool that links all its disparate parts together. One part workhorse, one part linchpin, and proven to be reliable for the battles of today, while featuring a whole lot to offer for the battles to come.